All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. As I'm doing every week for eternity, I think at this point I'm doing these calls remotely. It's always nice to interview people in their jam space or even in their homes or where they make their music. But because of the current situation worldwide, we're sort of stuck doing this. But it is cool because throughout the course of doing these online interviews, I've been either reaching out to or have been reached out by a lot of people who maybe were outside of my kind of realm of knowledge of the local music scene. And if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that there's so many different diverse genres and subgenres and subgenres of music, and every week there's new bands popping up out of nowhere, and there's people who've been playing for decades that I've been meeting for the first time on this show, even though I've been done it as long as I have. So I think that this Zoom thing has definitely increased the diversity in my guests, which is awesome. So the person on the show today has not been on the show before, so this is your first appearance. And I think the best way to start it off is if you want to introduce yourself and just give a little bit of background about what it is that you do.
Sure. My name is Heidi Korte, and I've been living in Winnipeg 15 years, and I am primarily a music teacher. I teach singer-songwriters, young ones, sort of young adults in Winnipeg.
Cool. And that was, there's a couple things I want to ask you about, but I think that's maybe a good place to start is the education side of things, because you have, I've been checking out your Instagram, both of your Instagram pages, and you have one for your studio, and it just seems like you have this never-ending, like, bag of young people, that you keep bringing out to play covers and original songs, and so what's the story behind that?
Well, before COVID, I had somewhat of an online presence with Instagram, but then when COVID started, it just kind of made me mad. And I was like, well, we're going to sing more. And if my students are listening, this is not good because they're going to hear my bag of secrets. But
Right.
somehow I thought, why don't I use COVID as an opportunity to get my students over their fear of performing, to
Okay.
get them. And so I kind of created this thing we've called Pass the Performance. And it started April. We're coming up to day 200 actually on
Wow.
the 30th of October. Yeah, it's been a long
That's
time.
exciting. Yeah.
The Dust Rhinos are going to guest for us actually on the 30th.
Oh, very cool. So are these all students that you would have had before, just one-on-one in-person kind of sessions?
Yeah. So I kind of created this positive peer pressure thing where they each get 1 day a month to sing,
Okay.
and they're responsible for that day. So every day on my Instagram, we have a student at no matter what skill level. So I thought to myself at the beginning, well, do I let the beginners who maybe aren't as great sounding as my more advanced songwriters, do I let them take a day? And I thought to myself, yes, they each get a day. And they were so terrified at the beginning. None of them had ever posted online content
Sure.
on anything. And now they're introducing themselves. It's just cool to see the journey, 5-6 months later of where they're at.
For sure. And then now you have this whole army you've built up of performers that, maybe by the time COVID's finished, you might have you can start your own label and just, you
Oh
have all
my
these
goodness.
artists ready to go, right?
Yeah, it's been so fun. We've had probably, I would say 4 or 5 empty spots a month that we haven't been able to fill just with our once a month. And so local artists are coming in and filling those gaps and encouraging my students. We just had Joy
Okay.
Stadnicek from the Joy Diamond Band.
Okay.
Oh, we have Marty Thiessen coming up in November. We have Olivia Lunny in November singing
Cool.
for us. So it's turning into something kind of neat.
Yeah, it's like a showcase for performances rather than just your music lessons, right? It's very cool. So
Well, and it's making them perform once a month, which is just so fun.
yeah, well, and they get that experience, right? That's huge for anyone who's starting out. So
Yeah.
what is your back? I know you said you've lived here for a certain amount of time. What's your musical background? Like, where do you come from? Because to me, you appeared sort of out of nowhere. I try to follow as many local musicians as I can, whatever genre of music, whatever style. And if memory serves, you first appeared on my radar when you did, I think it was a satirical song about Winnipeg.
Oh yeah.
That was
Oh
the
yeah,
first time
yeah.
I heard your name, and I saw that, and it was funny, and and so, but I have no idea where you came from before that, or even what you're doing now. Really, I think you're sort of in a different realm of the music scene than I'm used to. So, what's your background as a musician?
Man, I have been all over the place. I would say my background just keeps changing. I grew up in a small town in Northern Ontario, and believe it or not, I studied to be an opera singer.
Okay,
So I took over the phone lessons for 5 years
for opera.
for opera from a teacher in New York because
Oh,
there was
wow.
no, yeah, 5 years of it. So when my students complained about Skype, I'm like, come on, like, like you can see my face, we can
Yeah, yeah,
interact. Whereas I had a corded phone, not even a cell, and it was
yeah,
on
yeah.
my kitchen counter, and I would have my singing lesson into the phone and then check and see how it went. You know,
Wow.
it was
That's
wild.
yeah. That I didn't even think that existed, but of course it existed, right? I mean, that's
You,
yeah, yeah.
I have never met anyone else that's done it.
No, I can't imagine. No,
So,
so
but
did,
that's how I started.
that's cool. This is a very unique beginning, I think, for sure. So, did you actually ever pursue opera beyond that?
Uh, I did. Well, my vocal instructor got me an audition for U of M.
Okay.
And so I have a degree from there that I don't use as much as I would like.
Yeah.
Because I didn't end up becoming an opera singer. And the funny thing about that lady is that she never charged me
Oh,
for
wow.
5 years. Yeah. She just said, you worry about the phone bill, because back then there was no long
Sure. Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
And she just took care of the lesson.
That's awesome.
I know, except I didn't become an opera singer. So it's like, ooh, you know.
Have you talked to her since? Like, have you ever crossed paths? And
Oh yeah,
yeah.
actually, one of my music videos was made just for her.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It was the one called "More Than Words,"
Okay.
and basically, it says there's a line in there that says, "Maybe I'm not who I'm meant to be," or it just talks about her involvement in my life. And we had Ryan Bessler. He's a local dancer, fantastic young man. He danced it for me, and it's just this beautiful expression of gratitude because
Very
I
cool.
didn't become an opera singer.
Well, how did you? I mean, there's probably a lot in between here, but how did you transition from maybe wanting to become an opera singer to what you're doing now? Because what you're doing now, from what I've heard anyway, I mean, there's definitely a lot more pop elements than say opera would have in it, and so clearly there you made some moves along the way that led you to this current incarnation of yourself, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've reinvented myself so many times. But I mean, you know how I feel like, you know, if you just stumble around, you'll eventually find your path. I think
Right.
that's like very philosophical, but that is what happened. So I kind of transitioned out of opera to sort of doing some musical theater. I auditioned and did some local shows here,
Okay.
not Rainbow Stage or anything, but you know, local theater companies. And then I auditioned for something that needed sort of a rock pop sound. I won't say what it is because
Sure. Sure.
I'm friends with these people, and I had my heart set on it, but I still had more of a classical opera voice. And this man, God bless him, he told me that I needed to go take singing lessons
Okay.
after
After all the opera,
after
yeah.
after probably taking singing lessons since I was 7. It was like knife in the heart.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had Oh, it was just the worst rejection ever. And I moped about it and sat in the pity party well for, I don't
Yeah.
know, like months. And then something rose up in me and I was like, you know, I'm going to prove that guy wrong. So I stripped my voice down to nothing and retrained it from classical to speech level,
Okay.
which is totally different as a teacher speaking. It's a totally different way of producing sound. It's much more like talking and just is different.
Yeah.
And I, at that point, I didn't even know how to plug in a microphone. Like I was just really a singer only. And so in the last 10 years, I have learned all this.
Yeah. So, but what do you call the type of music you play now? I mean, where do you sort of position yourself if you have to put a label on it, which no one likes to do, but you know, it helps me anyway to file everyone away in my head in a little category, and I think it might help listeners too who maybe are new to your music, right? Like, what would you? Are there maybe popular artists you would compare your sound to?
Oh, my sound or my style? I don't,
Well,
I
I guess they're kind of related, right? Your sound and your style are connected, but they're not necessarily going to be the same.
Yeah, the problem with me is that because I'm a vocal coach and I studied so many different styles of singing, I can be a chameleon.
Okay.
And so if I need to sing, you know, Disney, I'm
Yeah.
part of that world, or if I need to sing Troubled in Mind, I'm Blue, I can just
Yeah.
alter the mechanism and change. So I think for me that you'd think that would be an asset. It's not, because then it makes it harder to develop your own style. So
Right.
the way I'm working now, and this is probably why you've never heard of me, is that I'm going to be growing my YouTube channel. I would say probably in the last 2 years, I've just sort of emerged, instead of just being teacher,
Yeah.
into I'm going to start creating content on YouTube to be enjoyed. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but generally what happens for me anyways is if I get a really fun idea, it doesn't really matter what the style is. I just run with it and then I self-produce it. Usually I play all the instruments and then I send it away to a mixer and boom.
So your
So
style is whatever you decide to take on, I guess.
Yeah, it really is because I've done a Finnish reggae song.
Cool. Finnish reggae.
Yeah, called "Ain't No Fishes."
Okay.
It got picked up by CTV last year and kind of did a Canadian wide thing, which was really cool because I don't have that much exposure yet, and so it is Finnish reggae, and it was so much fun.
What is Finnish reggae? I mean, I listen to heavy amounts of reggae. Like, I mean, I'm a huge nerd for certain eras of Jamaican music. I have all these 45s and stuff. I could talk about it all day. I don't want to right now because this is not what the show's about. But I'm a massive
Oh
nerd for it.
gosh.
But I've never heard anything from Finland. Is that? I mean,
No, they're well, okay. So they're Canadian. They're sort of North American Finns. There's a big
okay,
difference
okay,
between Finland Finns
yeah,
and
I'm
North
sure. Yeah,
American
yeah.
Finns.
Okay, okay,
But they're a group called Kongisemene,
okay.
and I think they're from Minnesota. They have two really great albums, "Living in Northern Paradise," and then there's one other one, and then there's two like other albums. I can't think of the other one right now. But yeah, they're Finnish reggae, so they sing about all these really funny random things like broken down on the side of the road, or Rudy got a brand new John Deere, ain't no fishes in this lake. Just really fun. There's a bunch of fishing songs. There's a bunch of songs about saunas.
Okay.
Guess who's coming to sauna?
Right, right.
Sauna, as you would say
Yeah,
in
yeah,
North
yeah,
America.
yeah. Is that a
They're
cover of Guess Who's
fun.
Coming to Dinner?
Oh no, guess who? No, it's guess who's coming to sauna? Heki
Yeah,
Lunta, which is like
that's
Jack
a
Frost.
Black Uhuru song called
Is
"Guess
it
Who's Coming to
really?
Dinner." Yeah, it's "Guess Who's Coming to Dinner." Natty Dreadlocks, and it's the same tune.
What? Really?
I will send you a YouTube link. It's one of my favorite
Like,
bands. Yeah, yeah,
guess who's coming to sauna? Heki Lunta.
yeah.
That's it. That's
100%,
oh my
100%.
gosh.
It's a
Oh, I
song
gotta go
from
check.
early 70s. Anyway, I have the album. I will send you a link afterwards. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to checking out some Finnish reggae. But so just to
Sorry,
get a
side
no.
trail,
That's
getting back on the trail.
that's very exciting actually. Back on track though. Yeah. So I don't even know where we're going now from Finnish reggae,
Oh,
but
you were talking about style. So I would say
yeah.
for me, like this recent video that I did, okay, so I've been hired to produce some things and write music. So for me, I really am all over the place. I did a film score for the 48 Hour
Okay.
film with Omar Benson and Tom Intherath, Winnipeg people, and we thought at the time that we had to record everything in the 48 hours, and
Right.
so they asked me to write a song that sounded like La La Land, which I'd never seen, and score it for orchestra and record it. So
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, we did that in 48 hours. Then they told me afterwards that it didn't need to be done in the
But
48
you had more
hours.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just the filming. But so that's like way out there, kind of jazzy feel.
Yeah.
Ain't No
Yeah.
Fishes, reggae, more than words, really soft and like inspirational. And then this latest one has a bit of a pop rock vibe.
Right. Is that the one you filmed in the theater?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the video. So that sounds like it seems like it has an interesting story behind it. Is that from where you're from? That filming?
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
So
Well,
what?
it's about 40 minutes north, but yeah.
Okay. So how did that come about? That video?
Okay, so we're talking about my video Haunted for those
That's
of
right.
you who
Yeah.
haven't seen it
Sorry, I
yet.
should have named it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Please subscribe to me on YouTube so that I can make some money eventually.
Eventually. Yeah. YouTube
Yeah.
is. Yeah. 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 Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Anyways, yeah, so I was riding on my bike this summer in my hometown, and I listened to this song by Patrick Scott called Haunted. And it was about his original creation of the song was that it was about a relationship that had been like finished, ended poorly.
Mhm.
And he was saying that his house felt haunted without her.
Okay.
I heard it, and because of what's happening with the arts and the theater world and the theater being dark, and I just thought, how cool would it be just to tweak it a little bit and have it be that the theater is haunted without the audience because
That's
of
cool. Yeah.
coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was like August 21st when I got the idea, and I was leaving for Winnipeg September 1st.
It's not a lot of time.
I know. So I kind of like put out just like little fleeces, if you want to call them. That's a church word. But I was like, okay, well, if I can get a theater to say yes to this and coronavirus, we'll do it. And so I called the two theaters, and the rundown haunted one that actually is run down and haunted said, yeah. And then I was like, well, can I get some dancers in a week to have choreographed stuff ready? And
Yeah.
called the local dance school, the best dancer there, who like called me back, and she was like, I can do this. I have girls for you.
Wow.
Let's go. Yeah, just like everything. I made a track in a week. Everything came together really, really quickly.
Well, it
It was
looks
so much fun.
based on watching it, you'd have no idea that it was done so quickly. Like, I mean, it's really professional looking
Thank
video.
you.
So it obviously it worked out, right?
It did. It did. I mean, there's some, it's not perfect, but what I forget whose quote this is, but there's never perfect, there's only finished.
Right. That's true. That's it. And I think actually a lot of musicians maybe have trouble with that. I mean, I know a lot of people who, write amazing songs, but they tinker with them forever. And, sometimes something that could have come out months ago or years ago is still sitting there unfinished because they can't release it. So you seem to not have that problem.
I have the opposite problem
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because mostly this was one of the first projects I actually had other people playing instruments for me. Normally, if you look at my Wolfpack cover,
Yeah.
like normally I play it all myself. So by the time I get to my vocal track, this is my weakness. By the time I finally get to record the main vocals, I'm so bloody sick of the song that I'm like, blah. And then I just rush it out. And I personally need to learn to take a little bit more time to look for the mistakes.
Right. Right. But there's something to be said for each approach, I think, though. I mean, like I think there's a middle ground, right, between tinkering so much that something never gets released and then rushing everything out. Because I mean, I haven't played in bands in years, but when I did, I was definitely more along your lines, where something was done, let's record it and move on to the next thing. And that didn't always work out so great, but at the time, it seemed like a good idea.
It doesn't. I just learned how this year. Wait, was it this year? I think in the last 8 months, I finally learned that how to use Logic's pitch correct, which that's been there the whole time. And if now when I listen back to my other ones, I'm like, oh, like I can hear that I'm 40 cents out.
Right, right. So
or not 40, maybe like 15.
So obviously you have the music, the vocal lessons things happening, and you got those kids doing those songs, which is great. You have the kind of opera, classical, more kind of traditional sort of music training as well. Now, how are you sort of feeling with your, if we can just call it your pop persona, I guess? I mean, you have that pop rock song that you made the video for we were talking about, and it's more, kind of more popular mainstream styles of music. Where do you think you fit in within the music scene in Winnipeg? Because it's so big and so complicated, and there's so many smaller sub-scenes and everything. Like, do you know kind of where you want to fit yourself within the larger community?
Nope. I know that I know that I love singing. I do open mics when we had open mics. I love singing
they existed,
blues. Yeah. Well, now it's like now I'm like, wow, I can't believe we all shared that same microphone and spit over them and like put our mouths right up to them. Like, to me, that now is like, blah.
It's horrifying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll be forever changed. But I think I love soul. I love blues. I love writing. I could see myself writing for film a lot more. I can see myself growing a YouTube and being a little bit more of a YouTuber. It's hard to say because this year I decided to set aside a day. So I'm teaching one less day.
Okay.
I'm taking Tuesdays as my creative day for personal projects, which is a big deal. Normally it's like I give everything I have away to my students. Yeah. And then there's like this little bit that's left over, and then we'll do a video with that. So this year I've changed it, and I've just decided to give my own path a bit more of a priority. And so Tuesdays I'm going to, like all year, I'm going to create. Cool. And see where that goes. So I'm still emerging, but for me, I don't know, maybe this is a bad approach and maybe I won't make it because of this, but wherever the joy and the fun is with my ideas, I want to do that. Like the Winnipeg song, I don't know if you've ever heard Aubrey Logan's version of it.
No, I hadn't heard the original, so I didn't get the connection, but I mean, the content of the Winnipeg one was very obviously Winnipeg centric and funny. Yeah.
It's funnier when you've heard her original because the lyrics are all about Los Angeles.
Yeah. And
we just tweaked them ever so slightly, and it works about it's the opposite. It's so much fun. Right. And so that idea came to me, and I just started laughing about it and thought, you know what, let's roll with this. And I think I had that one recorded in a week, and we filmed really quickly as well.
And that did pretty well on YouTube, right? Like you got a lot of views on that.
The fishes one so far. All the fishermen really like that.
That's the big one, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's coming up to 5,000 views in a year.
Oh, right on. So. When you when you're working with all these young people who are doing the singer-songwriter thing or covering songs, are you learning from them in terms of because they're starting off on their music careers? You have a lot of experience dating back to when you were a kid in music. Do you kind of get from them sort of new ways to put yourself out there, or new ways to change your style or your sound, or maybe even some of the influences that you're hearing from these kids?
I don't think so. Not as far as my own style. I think what I've learned the most, and I'm going to publish a book, hopefully by the end of the year about this, is I've learned how to walk people through all the mental obstacles. that goes with being with music.
Okay.
And so my students actually are joining me, and we are writing a book together about all the different things that artists go through. And it's going to be for the creative community, not just singers, but like
Cool.
dancers, actors, poets, because we all go through comparison, and we all go through lack of motivation, pity parties, rejection,
Yeah.
all these, like there's a smattering of just headspace issues that we face. So I think for me as a teacher, dealing with kids that come in and are like, I never want to sing for anyone ever. Yeah, I'm like, well, that's not going to be,
Yeah, that's not how this works. Yeah.
I right away get them doing 50 risks a year. It's their homework.
Are they all cool with it too? Like, are they all eventually open to
They
doing
kind of have no choice. So for me, fear is the enemy of greatness. That's what I tell them all. So, so when they study with me, they know, especially if they're fearful, that I'm going to make them do 50 risks a year, healthy risks, like not running after a bear or anything, but,
Sure,
like putting up your hand in class, talking to someone, just things that normally they would be too shy to do, because I would say everything in music involves risk. Even this, I've never met you before, and I've never been on a podcast before. I was like,
Yeah, no, for sure though. Yeah, it is risk, right? Just putting yourself out there and then seeing what other people think about what it is you're doing. I mean, even with what I'm doing here with the podcast, I'm talking to people twice a week, and a lot of the time it's like you are, if someone I've never met before, and I'm gonna just have this conversation with them about what they do and hope people will listen. And then people listen, and then it feels like I did the right thing, right? So yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So I'd say that's what I've learned from them. I've definitely learned how to teach different learning styles. I think for me, my big influences would be, well, if we're going to go here,
Sure.
Shoshana Bean changed my world.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of her?
I haven't. No. What can you tell me about her?
She is someone who can reach into your soul in a way that I have never seen any other artist do. And I'm looking for other artists that can, to kind of rival her.
Okay.
Yeah, she communicates in a way that I've never. So before her, I would say like a lot of people that come out of classical training, not everyone, but a lot, or dance training, we're sort of trained to be perfect on stage or to like impress people with our gift.
Yeah.
And that is sort of how I was before Shoshana. And then this is my little fangirl rant, but then after watching her sing and being like, wow, what is so different about her? Just following her has changed my musical world. And then that has changed my students. So I no longer train young people to be impressive. I train them to communicate, that music is about communication, just as important as it is that you're understanding what I'm saying right now. That doesn't change just because I'm singing a high E flat, right?
Right.
So, authenticity, growing your skill, being present in your lyrics. Sometimes we sing a song 50 times and we're thinking about groceries while we're singing it instead of being like 100% in our lyrics or having authentic emotion engaged, right? So all of these kind of concepts I grabbed from her and now have just tossed onto these beautiful young singer-songwriters.
Well, I like the authenticity thing because that's something that actually comes up a lot on this podcast. Regardless of what style of music I'm talking about, I feel like Manitobans in general have a very, very strong bullshit detector. And I think that the reason a lot of artists do well, regardless of their actual natural talent, it is when it comes through honestly. Like a lot of my favorite artists are people who maybe aren't the best technically singers or players, but you get an emotion from it that is real and is genuine. And like personally, I find that way more engaging than someone who's hitting all the right notes exactly and playing something as is written on the page, but without any kind of feeling behind it. So I think that authenticity thing is really important, especially because not everyone who's listening has that technical training. So they're not necessarily going to notice, oh, you sang that perfectly, but they're going to know if they felt it, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just sort of a change from the 2000s to the 2000 and whatever we are. Don't even say 2020.
Yeah, it seems too futuristic.
Yeah. But I feel like all those divas, like the divas and the pop boy bands, all that stuff in like late 90s, early 2000s, it was like auto-tuned. It was like the Mariah Careys, the Christina Aguileras, just like that big diva, larger than life personality. I think that's going by the wayside. I think that was a trend. And now I think my personal opinion is that who you are on stage should be the same as who you are off the stage. There shouldn't be a difference, you know?
Did you ever have any difficulty with that aspect of having emotion, being in the moment of what you're singing, just because you have so
Oh,
much technical training?
for sure.
Like,
It's
does
still
it get in the way
something
at all?
for I think just because when I sort of had that, I would call that my beginning,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
That moment where all of that stuff that sort of Shoshana practices sunk into me and changed me, I would say that was my beginning. But I would say, because I've performed so long the other way, it's a conscious effort. I think also when you're playing an instrument, it's harder to be 100% emotionally engaged because you're
Right.
also thinking about your A flat chord,
But you
or
split your
whatever.
brain in two, right? You got the vocal part and then the instrumental part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's way easier to go into those places if I'm not playing. But if I am, then I try and be as much as possible. I think it takes more energy to be that present in your lyrics, and even things like repeated choruses. Like when you have a chorus that comes up 4 times, what's the emotional reason for each chorus? It should be
Right.
different.
Right.
And some people want to go there and put that, and you can really feel that extra energy because then it's not just the chorus again, it's actually you're going on a journey with them.
Right. The song has moved forward rather than just staying
Yeah,
stagnant. Yeah.
yeah, well said, exactly. So
Cool. Yeah, that's well. It's good to hear that kind of stuff because I think that like I said, I mean, a lot of artists I listen to, that's the emotional part is the key for me rather than the necessarily technical skill. So, and I do know a lot of people who are heavily trained in music schools and classically and jazz and everything else, and some of them can't create. They can play things beautifully, right off the page, and they can nail it better than I could ever dream of doing. But they can't write their own songs because they're so stuck in that mindset of they have to play it exactly as it's written, and if it's not there
mhm.
for them, it's just not.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's a block a lot of people get where they just get they're amazingly talented, but they can't move past needing to have it presented to them.
I think that's also the difference between reading and talking.
Yeah, yeah,
That so with a lot of people that have studied classical piano, because I teach instruments as well,
sure.
classical piano, you learn how to read and how to replicate what's on the page, right? So you see the C, you
Yeah,
play
play
the
the C.
C.
Yeah,
Um, and then the way I teach is more like talking. So my students, I'm like, okay, you're going to improvise for me for 7 minutes. Go.
yeah,
And sometimes I'll even give them the story. That's what I've been doing lately. Like a little girl is walking into the woods, and then this happens, and then this happens, and they have to kind of create that, and that gets them, instead of reading, it gets them talking and
yeah,
like
yeah,
to get their own thoughts. How do I create, like angst, right?
yeah,
Versus how do I create like chill?
yeah.
You know what I mean? So learning how to create for them is I think that's so important because you can still learn all that theory and you can learn all that skill, but I think that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, is
It's
just the creative side of things. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So if people, I mean, like I said,
Sorry, I'm talking like such a
no, no,
teacher.
no, no, it's fine. It's fine. This stuff is interesting because, I'm usually talking to, like a metal band or a folk singer or a rapper, and most of them are not, some of them are teachers, but most of them aren't, right? So this is a different perspective, and it's nice to hear.
It's going to be a different podcast,
Yeah,
y'all.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Nothing wrong with that, though. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that there's every few podcasts are pretty different, so it's pretty good.
Okay. All right.
So, like I said in the beginning, you're relatively new to me in terms of your music. You likely are new to a lot of people listening to the show right now. What's the best way for someone to find out more about what you're doing if they're hearing you for the first time here?
Subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Right.
Well, that's where I put my content. I think that's my vision right now is
Okay.
I generally get a whole idea of like, I get the visual of what I want for something. I get the auditory of what I want to do. And it just ends up becoming that way. We'll see.
Okay. And as far
I,
as, oh, sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
definitely
Go ahead.
no, it's okay. I'm definitely more. It's easier for me to write music than lyrics, so we'll see. I have a song in the works called Mr. Kijiji,
Okay.
um, and I've also been hired to write music for other people's lyrics. I really like doing that because yeah, I think I'm generally more music than lyrics, so it's hard. I'll sit around and crumple up papers if I'm writing lyrics
Right.
for myself. Whereas if someone just gives me lyrics, I can usually just hear something pretty quick, or give you a couple versions of what this could be like.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
want a pop song, here, let's go this way. If you want, whatever.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's a good skill to have too, right? I mean, to be able to take someone else's their words and turn it into something, turn into a whole. That's
Hmm.
cool. So
Yeah,
is
if you
that
check out if you check out my video Wake Up Yesterday, that was actually, the lyrics were penned by a First Nations woman in northern Canada.
Okay.
And it's about the, suicide and the loss of her nephew. And so she paid me to put the music to it. And then Omar Benson ended up filming this beautiful music video with 2 First Nation actors. And it's just really cool.
Cool. So aside from your YouTube page, where else are you? I mean, I know your Instagram seems to be getting a lot of content, especially the studios one, right?
Yeah, I would say the studio one gets more just because there's a song a day.
Right, right. How many? And you're over 200 at this point?
No, we're coming up. So
Coming up to 200. Okay.
I think we're 196. Day 200 is October 30th. And
So
the
by the
bus
time people
rider
hear
is.
this, it'll be already. It's cool though. It's all good because people can listen to it anytime they want, right? That's the good thing
Oh,
about a
yeah.
podcast. Someone could hear it 3 years from now. I mean, by which point you'll be hopefully well over 200. But yeah.
Well, hopefully, I don't know. I hope I'll keep it going. Because right now COVID is the reason my students are singing once a month, and that's
Right.
kind of not the bribery, but it's like, you know what I mean? That's how I kind of got them to agree to do this.
Yeah.
So once that's done, we'll see if we keep going.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's like anything else, right? No one knows whether what they're doing now is going to continue after, assuming things get back to normal in some way or another. So it's cool that you're doing it now, though. I mean, I think it's a very good use of your and your students' time during the pandemic to put out something like that because it gives them a lot of exposure, and it's there's so many people who are doing creative stuff right now that it's nice to see. And people are coming up with all kinds of weird ideas, and I can't wait to see all of the albums and books and plays and everything else that come out once this is done that everyone's been working on. Because I know everyone has some kind of project that they're secretly working on at home, and hopefully within a few months or however long it takes, that'll all be unveiled, and we'll have this bright, happy period of creativity.
Oh yeah, from your mouth, I agree.
Right on. Okay, so I stopped recording.
Okay, cool.